Ma'am, Dr. Malvika just called up. She will not be able to join because
no problems.
Yeah, and I believe Dr. Sanjivini ma'am is there.
आप शुरू करेंगे अभी तो it is all sir show.
जी.
Good evening, Hitesh sir. Good evening, Shakuntala ji.
Good evening, Dr. Anita. How are you?
Fine. We are all looking forward to listen to Hitesh sir.
Definitely.
Please unmute yourself, all of you, please. Mute yourself.
Namaskar. After a long time, I am in time. आपकी डांट खाई पिछली बार.
नहीं ऐसी बात नहीं. शकुंतला स्टार्ट करेंगे.
जी मैम, बिल्कुल. So, good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to introduce today's program to the PAN DGF Forum. This is a medico-legal program on procedure-specific consents, a very important program since the inception of this forum, which was started with the intent of making all the gynecologists aware of day-to-day medico-legal problems that we face in our practice. In today's program, we have our three esteemed chairpersons, Dr. Sharda Jain ma'am, Dr. Arvind Narayanan, Dr. Bokaria. Dr. Sharda Jain has been a faculty. She is an untiring teacher of teachers who has been a faculty of more than 2 decades of PG MER Chandigarh, Lady Hardinge Medical College. And she is a founder member of this Delhi Gynecologist Forum, as well as the medical legal awareness program in the post-graduation course. She has been decorated by Lifetime Achievement Awards and Living Legend Awards by many prestigious bodies.
Shakuntala, it is not needed. It is not needed. Please, Shakuntala.
Ma'am, it is just my privilege and it's the shortest introduction I could give. Our next chairperson is Dr. Arvind Narayanan. Dr. Arvind Narayanan is a doctor as well as a lawyer. He has stood by all of us whenever we needed him. He has been the past president of IMA East Delhi branch and a joint secretary of DMA. Our third esteemed chairperson is Dr. Bokaria, whom we know so very well. She is a senior consultant, Fortis La Femme and Max Patparganj Hospital, with the deep interest in medico-legal forum, adolescent health and infertility, has got several achievements to her credit and has been the past president of East Delhi Gynae Forum and chairman of medico-legal committee. We have with us experts who will be deliberating today. Dr. Urvashi Jha, retired past chairperson, head of the department, PD Hinduja Hospital, Mumbai, Max Hospitals, Delhi, and Fortis Vasant Kuj Hospital. We know her very well as the doctor who joined Apollo Hospital and was the pioneer of laparoscopic surgeries there. Our next chairperson, expert in this forum is Dr. Sanjivini Khanna, ma'am. Ma'am is there? Our next expert here in this August gathering is Dr. Shivani Sachdev. Again, doesn't need any introduction. She is Director, SCI Healthcare, Founder Secretary, Delhi State Chapter of Hisar, Secretary, Delhi State Chapter of Ispat, General Secretary, Instar, ex-Vice President, Delhi Gynae Forum South, and Vice Chairperson of Women Doctor Wing, IMA South Delhi. Our next expert here in this forum is Dr. Malvika Sabarwal. She is not joining us today because of some personal involvement. Our next chairperson, expert today is Dr. Leena will not be joining again. She is also not joining. please. Dr. Kishore Rajakar. He is Senior Consultant Gynecologist, Perinatologist, Head of the Department OB-GYN, SGMH Delhi, President Delhi Gynae Forum, Outer Delhi, winner of several accolades and awards, has been a consultant with COVID and HIV departments, contributed several papers in AICOG and FICO. Our next expert is I think we are done with all the experts. We have Dr. Vandana as our next expert. She is the Senior Consultant for Fortis Hospital, Shalimar Bagh, Secretary, Delhi Gynae Forum North, and has been the recipient of President Abdul Kalam Award for Appreciation 2020. So I hand over the forum for consideration now to Dr. Sharda Jain ma'am, who will be talking about the inception of this forum, why it was conceived and what is the need of this forum, and a minute about today's program. Over to you, ma'am.
I think great greetings from the Medical Legal Cell. This particular program is being brought to you. This Medical Legal Cell came in 15 years back. And this was the need of the hour at that time, because quite a few of our gynecologists were troubled. And when we looked towards Foxy, we found, and AOGD, we found that there was no help was coming. So I was told by my friend, Dr. Arvind Narayan, that, Dr. Sharda Jain, you should start a medical legal cell where you call 3-4 doctors and they will scrutinize the case and they will give a joint certificate. And this will come as a boon to them to defend, it will be great defense by the doctors. And we had started this particular activity something like 15 years back, and we can say hundreds of doctors have been benefited with this particular activity. Now, the credit to this particular forum is that, Dr. Bokaria took over as a chairman, and, all the activities around is all because of the hard work of Dr. Bokaria. And we are blessed that we had 2 medical legal experts, top medical legal experts of the country, Dr. Hitesh and Dr. Gitendra, who gave a helping hand to Delhi Gynecologist Forum to start what is called PGC MLS course. Now, what is the need? The need is all gynecologists, all doctors listening me, they require consent. They must understand what is the wide spectrum consent, and Dr. Hitesh is going to make it very clear. Our communication has to be great. Our documentation has to be great. And short of this particular course, each and everybody should do this particular course to know the integrity of things, how to protect yourself from litigation. So now this particular brings me to Dr. Bokaria to introduce our friend, Dr. Hitesh. Dr. Raj. Dr. Raj, introduce Hitesh.
Yeah, ma'am.
I think
very warm greetings to everyone, and I thank DGF MLC for giving me this opportunity. It's my great pleasure, and I feel very honored to introduce Dr. Hitesh Bhatt, who is an advocate now, though he was initially as a gynecologist, practicing as a gynecologist and obstetrician. Malti, can I have the slide, please? CV of Dr. Hitesh Bhatt. He is practicing in the as a medical legal consultant since last 17 years, more than 17 years, and he is all over the country in the various hospitals. And also, he has written 2 books on the medical legal subject, that is the consent in obs and gynae and what a doctor should know in the medical legal subject. The other thing is very important is that they have a very a good website on the consent where anyone can get it easily with a very, very nominal pay. And he is having his own B&S consultancy firm where along with Dr. Giten Sharma, he is providing consultancy. And the best part is they only take the cases of the doctors only, not to the opposite party, so that they are always for the medical. He has delivered more than 600 all over, invited as a faculty all over the country and outside also. Today the topic is that is the consent. We know out of all the consent plays a very important role, and it is an art to take the consent. Most of us, especially the gynecologist, we are taking the consent in a hurry, and we don't pay much attention on the consent. Either it is incomplete, improper, or we don't fill up all the columns of the consent form. And after the case of this Kasamira Kohli versus Dr. Prabha Manchanda, it has become a mandatory to have the procedure specific consent. The people are either they don't have a proper consent form, and that only leads to the litigation. And this is the main reason for the litigation, especially over the gynecologist and also to the other specialty. So Dr. Hitesh is going to, who is the par excellence person in the medical and expert in the medical legal field, is going to talk on the various aspects of this consent, and especially the procedure specific consent, why it is essential and from where we can get it. And I welcome you, Dr. Hitesh, for your talk, and we all are eagerly waiting to hear from you. Dr. Hitesh,
and he has promised us that he will help every doctor to have a procedure specific consent.
Thank you very much, madam, for putting the trust in us, and we definitely will do good from our side. So, not taking much time into the introduction and all, I would like to straightway start my presentation. So, I'm starting it straight. Just a minute. So, now, can you see my presentation, madam? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
We can see.
Please.
Okay. So,
Yes, we can see.
okay. Thank you very much. So, I thank all of you for being here and allowing me to share my views on the very important subject, consent. And it is very important that even Amitabh Bachchan has to sign it. If he comes to your clinic, you have to take a consent. Now, what is consent? Consent is defined only in the Indian Contract Act when two or more persons are said to consent when they agree upon same thing in same sense. That is what is consent. Two people have to agree on same thing in same sense. We also know the types of consent, the implied consent or express consent. What is implied consent? Implied consent is where you don't have to take any signature. It is presumed by both the parties that there is a consent existing between both of them. So that happens in day-to-day life also. Like when you go to a vendor in a shop, or you go to Sabji Wala, or you sit in a taxi, there is an implied consent. The taxi wala is under obligation to reach you to the place where you want to go, and you are under obligation to pay him as per the meter reading. That is called implied consent. So that type of consent works in our field also, that when a patient comes to you in your office, sits in your chamber, there starts a contract between you and the patient, wherein you offer your services and they owe you your charges. There is nothing written, but still there is an implied consent. But that works only for the examination and history taking part. If you want to, and that is also only for your specialty. So if ENT surgeon wants to do PSPV of a patient for whatever reason, he has to take express consent and written consent. So implied consent works only for the known things, and it is for the it is not written, and it is only for the practice in which you are, and only examination and history taking. Now, Supreme Court has said that whatever you do beyond that, beyond examination, beyond history taking, there has to be express and informed consent. What is express? Express or inform means you have to tell the patient what you are going to do. And express can be oral express, it can be written express. Oral express has no value or little value, and that will work at one place where you are going to give injection to the patient. Suppose you have taken patient inside your examination room and you just tell her that turn on that side and you are pricking her with injection tetanus, kachak. That you can't do. You have to tell her that I am going to prick you, this is an injection, there is a tetanus toxoid that you have to take during pregnancy. All this information you have to give and then you have to prick her. So anything beyond examination you want to do, you have to have express consent. It can be oral when it is just a needle prick with known drug or with some known thing. If you are taking blood also, you are withdrawing blood, you have to have oral express consent of the patient. But when it comes to certain tests, say you are going to test HIV or you are going to give certain vaccines which has some contraindications or which has some adverse effects, you have to have written consent as well. So express consent becomes authenticated or becomes documented by written means. So that is called written consent. So this, with basic concept, this in mind, we can go ahead. So consent is all about talking. And it is said that more you talk with your patient in your consultation room, less you will have to talk against her in the courtroom. So as Madam mentioned, this case, Kasamira Kohli versus Dr. Prabha Manchanda, this is a very famous case on the consent. It is a landmark judgment, and Supreme Court gave various principles of consent in this case. I will tell you the brief of this case that Dr. Samira Kohli was a patient. She was unmarried. She was around 40 and she had menstrual problems, dysmenorrhea. She attended the office of Dr. Prabha Manchanda and she suggested her to have diagnostic because on sonography the cysts were seen. So she suggested her that there can be a possibility of endometriosis and we have to do diagnostic laparoscopy. In the it was a case of late 90s. So at that time the diagnostic feature of the diagnostic test for the endometriosis was the laparoscopy. So that was correctly suggested to her, and Samira Kohli came there with her mother. Now Dr. Prabha Manchanda started with the surgery. Diagnostic consent was taken for diagnostics laparoscopy and SOS laparotomy. That these were the words mentioned in the consent. Now operation started, and as soon as the scope was put inside, there were adhesions in the abdomen. It was grade 3, grade 4 endometriosis. Everything was adherent. And Dr. Prabha Manchanda came to know that her dysmenorrhea is because of this adhesions. So she said, she thought that just by looking at the adhesion, the pain is not going to go. So it is better to do adhesinolysis. So she started cutting the adhesions, and while doing so, there was bleeding. So she called her mother inside. She said that, see, there is a bleeding now. I will have to go for laparotomy, and we may do abdominal hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy. That is the ultimate treatment of the grade 3, grade 4 endometriosis. Your daughter will be relieved of the symptoms, and we are doing it. She called another person for help. She called BT, and everything was done. Patient was then operated. Patient was fine. Patient was discharged. And during the surgery, Dr. Lata Rangan, who was assistant of Dr. Prabha Manchanda, she went outside and took the consent of the mother for the hysterectomy. So bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy with hysterectomy consent was also taken from the mother of Samira Kohli. And the case was nicely done. Samira Kohli went home happily, and there was no complication during the surgery except this. Now, she did not pay a single penny because the bill which was told to her before the surgery for diagnostic scopy was around 8,000 rupees. But if you open the case, you give BT, you call another colleague, you add anesthesia, and you convert surgery from diagnostic scopy to extensive surgery of bilateral oophorectomy with hysterectomy, if you do that, the charges usually increases, right? We tend to charge more. So that is what the Dr. Prabha Manchanda did. She tendered her a bill of 32,000 rupees and Samira Kohli did not pay a single penny. So Prabha Manchanda sent her a notice for settling the bill. Now that time Colonel Jutsi, who was friend of Samira Kohli, he came to hospital, he fought with the doctors, he fought with the staff, he abused the staff, and he filed a case against the doctor and the hospital stating that Samira Kohli's hysterectomy was done without her consent, and he demanded 25 lakh rupees in return. He said that consent of my friend was not taken. And since the consent is not taken and you have done this hysterectomy, now she will require various treatments. She will not have child in the future of her own. She will require surrogate. She will require donors. And you have spoiled her matrimonial prospects, because who will marry a girl without a uterus? And he also said that she will require now hormones because you have removed ovaries prematurely, and all these allegations he has put and demanded 25 lakh rupees. So this is all about this, which I already told you. Now National Commission, the case went into National Commission because the amount claimed was more than 20 lakh rupees at that time. So National Commission said that this was the Dr. Sudha Salhan. He came to rescue and she said that whatever treatment was done was perfect. The surgical removal of the uterus, ovaries, etc. was necessitated as appellant was found to be suffering from endometriosis grade 4. And if they have not been removed, there was likelihood of the lesion extending to the intestine and bladder and damage. So National Commission said the treatment is properly done, there is no negligence, and the case was dismissed. But he was Colonel Jutsi, he was fighter. He went to the Supreme Court. Now when it entered in, the case was filed into the Supreme Court first noticed that the National Commission was wrong in giving the decision. And why Supreme Court said so? Supreme Court said that nowhere in the complaint it is mentioned that treatment done is wrong. The complaint was treatment was done without a consent. That aspect was not taken care of by the National Commission, and that is why they admitted the case. And they evaluated this case on the pleading of the complaint that whether consent is required for a surgery or not. They said we have to check that. There is no doubt that treatment was proper. But whether the informed consent of a patient is necessary for surgical procedure involving removal of reproductive organs, the answer is a doctor has to seek and secure the consent of the patient before commencing the treatment. They found out this answer on their own by referring to various international and international judgments, international literature, international procedures, and they have come out with this answer on their own. So the first answer went in favor of the complainant. The second answer they asked, the question they asked, the second question was, what is the nature of consent? If consent is required, then what should be the nature of consent? The Supreme Court further answered it, and the consent should be real and valid. That means it can't be implied consent. Consent has to be real and valid. What is real and valid? They further elaborated, real and valid means it should be free consent. There has to be capacity and competency to consent. It should be for lawful object and consideration, and adequate information should be given to the patient. Now let us see all these four parameters, from where they have arrived to these four parameters. So we have to go back to the Contract Act. Now in Contract Act, there are two terminology, agreement and contract. What is agreement? Agreement is when one party or one person offers something to someone, that becomes an agreement. So if I ask any of my friend that will you come for a movie today? He says yes, it is an agreement between us. What is contract? When agreement is broken or when promise is broken, a mutual promise is broken by any of the party, if you have a right to sue that party, you have a legal sanction behind it, then it is called contract. it is no more agreement, but it is a contract. So agreement, when it becomes a legal power is there, legal remedy is there into agreement, it becomes a contract. So how can an agreement become a contract? They say that when the agreement is with the free consent of the parties, free consent means without coercion, without undue influence, without fraud, without misrepresentation, and without mistake of fact. Coercion means putting a gun at somebody's head and you say that do this, come for a movie with me tomorrow. Undue influence, your mother has delivered with me, don't ask me questions. Undue influence. Fraud, taking consent on a blank form and you write whatever you want afterwards. Misrepresentation, if patient asks you, doctor, kuch hoga to nahi na? Kuch nahi hoga. Misrepresentation. And mistake of fact and mistake of law. Mistake of fact means when patient believes something else and you are doing something else. And that has happened with me when I was doing a practice in OB/GYN. Yes, I practiced as a gynecologist for many years. So when I was doing that, one patient came to me and said, sir, meri bachchedani nikal do. I said, why? She said, bas, abhi 3 bachche ho gaye, meri bachchedani nikal do, theli nikalna hai. She was from Bihar or somewhere. She said, theli nikalna hai, sab test ho chuka hai, theli nikalna hai. I was happy. Theli nikalna hai, case mil gaya mujhe. So I said, but I had some doubt. Is there any problem you have? Kuch hai aapko, problem hai kuch? He said, no, theli nikal do. मैंने कहा पर आपको क्यों निकालनी है? Then she said, अभी मेरे को बच्चे हो गए, अभी आगे बच्चा नहीं चाहिए. मैंने कहा then you have to go for नसबंदी. हाँ बस वही. See, there was mistake of fact. What she meant by theli nikalo was nasbandi and not the hysterectomy. So if you take consent with mistake of fact, then also that consent is no consent. Parties should be competent to contract. That means more than 18 years of age with sound mind and lawful consideration and lawful object. That means whatever you decide, whatever your object is, it has to be lawful. So if me and Gitendra, we decide, we both are more than 18 years, though Gitendra doesn't look more than 18 years, but still, we both are more than 18 years. We, with the free consent, we decide that we will rob somebody and distribute the profit 50%. The consideration and object is not lawful. To rob someone is a crime, and that consent is, or that contract is not a contract. So the court said these 3 things should be there in agreement: free consent, competency of the party, and lawful consideration and lawful object. Then an agreement becomes a contract. Now, after understanding this part from the Contract Act, and this was the question we used to get in our LLB exam, all contracts are agreement, but all agreements are not contract. So the contracts which has these 3 elements becomes a contract. But the contracts which doesn't have these 3 elements doesn't become a contract. So with this, why I brought this? Because in the decision of this judgment, the court said what should be the nature of consent? It should be real and valid, and they said it should be with free consent. There has to be capacity and competency to consent. It should be for lawful object and lawful consideration. And they added the 4th parameter, adequate information should be passed on. So they equated the consent with a contract. In competency and capacity to consent, they have added one more thing: not under the influence of drug or anesthesia. Patient should not only be major and sane, also should not be under the influence of drugs and anesthesia. This is not the case in case of contract, but definitely it is a case in case of consent, because many times doctors are taking consent on table. Patient is under spinal anesthesia, they are doing cesarean, and they are asking, because the upper half of the patient is moving, they will put a paper in her hand and say, yeah, sign karo, tumhara TL kar dete hain. That is not allowed. Patient is under anesthesia. That consent is no consent. For lawful object and lawful consideration, we have already seen, and adequate information should be passed on. That is the 4th parameter they have added, which is not there in the Contract Act. If I make a contract with my, say, builder, he need not tell me, he need not give me adequate information. But here you have to give adequate information. And the 3rd question in this particular case was, what is adequate information? Supreme Court defined that also. Supreme Court said adequate information means nature and procedure of the treatment should be told, purpose should be told, benefit of the treatment should be told, alternative should be told, outline of risk should be told, and adverse consequence of refusing the treatment should be told. All these 6 parameters should be told to the patient. Now, what is nature and procedure of the treatment? If you are doing cesarean, you have to tell that I'm going to put a 10 centimeter incision of the abdomen. It will be transverse or it will be vertical. I will open the abdomen. I will then cut the uterus. I will take out the baby. I will remove the placenta. I will suture the uterus. I will close all the layers. I will put the dressing. That is how you have to tell the procedure. Purpose of the treatment. You have to tell that your child is oblique, your child is transversely placed, your child is inversely placed, that is breech, or the diameter of the head is big. Whatever is the purpose, you have to tell. Benefit. What benefit? You will not have rupture uterus. You will not have the fetal distress. Alternatives. We can wait for the normal. We can give a trial, but there is a chance of fetal distress. There is a chance of rupture uterus. Outline of risk. If we go for cesarean, there can be bleeding, there can be hysterectomy required, there can be injury to bowel, there can be injury to bladder, all these things. And adverse consequence of refusing the treatment. If you will not do this, then baby may have fetal distress, you may have rupture uterus, all these things. So you have to tell everything to the patient. And that becomes adequate information, and then you have to take the signature. So this is what Supreme Court said. This is not the case in contract. So it is even more than contract. My builder need not tell me that this is the house, this is the material we have used. If you will stay in the house, you will be comfortable. You will not be affected by rain. You will not be affected by wind. That he need not tell me. Right? I have to purchase it. So here in consent, they have put more responsibility on a doctor to tell all these things to the patient. They further said that we should not tell too many things. We should not explain their theoretical risk, which may refrain patient from taking the treatment. If I tell patient for property insertion that there can be a neurogenic shock and you may die, nobody will take property from me. Right? Similarly, you did not explain the refusal, the risk of refusal, or the benefit in such a way that patient will buy your treatment. If there is no possibility of having fetal distress or rupture uterus, you cannot tell that so that patient will undergo cesarean. So you have to balance this thing. That is what also Supreme Court said. So we came out with this book first, consent in OBGYN and procedure specific consent. We have made a website now, consentfordoctor.com, which I'm going to introduce one person who is going to show all these things to you after this talk. So there are exceptions to this principle of adequate information. The court said when there is genuine emergency, you can go ahead and do it. There is no need to explain all these things, and you can do something to save the life of the patient. Emergency should be genuine, means it should be for immediately saving life of the patient. It can't be that I have to attend a marriage. That is not emergency, right? And where the information would be harmful to the patient. That means if you say that there is a chance that you may not die from this operation, patient will die there and then. In that case also, you should not tell this information to the patient, and you have to take the consent. That is what the Supreme Court said. You can avoid taking consent of the patient when this type of situation is there. Fourth question was asked, can the consent of diagnostic surgery be construed as operative? The answer is no. You have to take the consent for diagnostic procedure. You cannot do additional procedure. Then fifth question was asked, can there be a common consent for diagnostic and operative? The answer is yes, you can have. The sixth question was asked, can there be a common consent for one procedure and further procedure? The answer is yes, you can take. And the last question they asked, can consent be taken by assistant? Because that was also a claim that consent, even though it was not taken by the doctor herself. Lata Rangan was sent outside to take the consent from the mother. The court said yes, the consent can be taken by the assistant. Surgeon need not be taking consent all the time, but whosoever takes the consent has to explain all these things. So that is what is the responsibility. So consent taking doctor and operating doctor can be different. After this much understanding, this case, the court said, can doctor be held negligent? The answer is no, doctor is not negligent. But still, there is a liability for assault and battery. That means doctor has caused some harm to the patient because the consent was for diagnostic surgery and operative things were done. And laparotomy may be needed. That was the mention and not the abdominal hysterectomy. And the doctor's argument was, it was ridiculous. The doctor said, laparotomy means hysterectomy. That is what her lawyer argued. He said, laparotomy means hysterectomy. The court said, we have gone through the literature worldwide. They said laparotomy is the first step towards hysterectomy, but it is not hysterectomy by itself. And you see the intelligence of the judge. They are not doctors, but they are very intelligent people. The Supreme Court judge, he said that, okay, doctor, for a minute we believe that laparotomy, by laparotomy in the consent, you have written laparotomy may be needed. By that you meant hysterectomy is needed. Fine. If that was the case, then what was the need for you to send your assistant Lata Rangan outside to take the consent of her mother on a hysterectomy paper? That means you yourself are not convinced that laparotomy is a hysterectomy. This is what is the intelligence in the law. They know your conduct. They can decide so many things from your conduct. That means you yourself do not believe that hysterectomy means laparotomy. That is what the court said. So the judgment was given against the doctor. They said you will have to let go that 32,000 rupees plus you pay 25,000 rupees with interest. And I think Samira Kohli must have got some 2-3 lakh rupees. But after that judgment, this judgment was quoted so many times in the various judgment, and it became a landmark judgment, and the compensation amount went on increasing. And one more thing the court said, that the National Commission noted that the treatment was proper, right? That was the adequate treatment which was given. The court said the correctness or appropriateness of the treatment does not make the treatment legal in the absence of consent for the treatment. The correctness of the action doesn't make the action legal. This is the dictum in a criminal law. If suppose I see somebody sitting on the road and I feel that he is a terrorist, if I kill him with a gun or with anything, I am a murderer. I have no right to kill him. My action is correct. I have killed the terrorist. I have done ethically right thing, but it is not legally correct thing. He has to die with due process of law. Nobody gives me right to kill him. So correctness of the treatment does not make the treatment legal. It is correct treatment, but not legal treatment. If you terminate the pregnancy after say 24 weeks without taking anybody's permission, for an anomalous child, your treatment is correct, but it is not legal. It becomes illegal. So ethics are supreme in our practice, but it cannot surpass the law. You have to keep the legal framework in your mind. So in short, what I can say is consent is something which villain tries to do with the heroine in every Hindi film. Ultimately, hero does the same thing. The only difference is of the consent. So we have seen this. Now there are certain legal consents. That also we have to understand that in MTP Act there is Form C, in PCPNDT Act there is Form G, in Organ Transplant Act there are consents, in not ICMR guidelines, now in ART Act there is legal consent. Only talk about the legal part of it, like MTP Act. It is not a crime. Doctor is not doing it against her will. But what about if it is DNC or suction evacuation? What about incompleteness? What about bleeding? What about continuation of pregnancy? What about perforation? What about death on table? For that you require medical consent. PCPNDT Form G is a consent. I don't want to know the sex of my child by doing that test. What about if you are doing say amniocentesis or CVS, there is a possibility of failure, there is possibility of false report, false positive report, there is a possibility of abortion. That is a medical consent. So we have to take medical consent wherever applicable. Or in any, I will say, in every case, medical consent is must, and wherever applicable, you have to take legal consent as well. So I will quote this Jaipal Reddy's case. See Jaipal Reddy versus Yashoda Group of Hospital in Hyderabad. What happened here? The similar case, but only difference was the Kusuma Reddy was the patient, and she she was having menorrhagia and dysmenorrhea and bleeding, and she was Denazole for 1 year, and she was not treated for that. So Dr. Padmini Velluri, Dr. Padmini, she was a gynecologist, and she was treating her, and she suggested hysterectomy because that is the ultimate cure. Kusuma Reddy was already having 1 or 2 child, and she was told that hysterectomy is required. Hysterectomy was done. Patient nicely went home. Abdominal hysterectomy, vaginal hysterectomy or abdominal hysterectomy with bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, that was done. Patient went home. Then see Jaipal Reddy, the husband of the patient, he filed a case that we were not advised about the alternates. We were not advised about the risk. We were not advised about anything. The consent was not taken. Only the signatures were done, and consent was all blank. He presented the case paper where the blanks were left blank. I, doctor dash, patient dash, operation dash, everything was blank. So he said that now I want 1 more child. So you have removed the uterus of my wife. So I will require now a surrogate service. You have removed ovaries, so I will require donor service. Sperms I can produce. And I want to shift myself to New Zealand. There this treatment is very costly. So kindly grant me 2.5 crore rupees. That was asked. And ultimately some 10 lakhs plus interest was given because the consents were incomplete. And the court said that when doctors do not have time to fill in the gaps, we have no reason to believe that this was explained to the patient. And that was our concern. First, we made the book Consent in OBGYN. So people started printing consent from that book as it is. And the blanks were left blank. So we made this website, consentfordoctor.com. And we have made a provision that unless you enter all the fields, it will not be printed, so that your staff will not leave anything blank. So friends, it is said in the law that good documentation is a good defense, poor documentation is a poor defense, and no documentation means no defense in the court. So consent is one such document which is proving as a defense to you. It is like this: when you are having a nice time with your patient, nobody complains, right? But minute something goes wrong, then patient will start waving that thing against you. Patient will start teasing you by showing it again and again. And that is a harassment to you. But if you have good documentation and good consent at your hand, you can wave it back to the patient, right? And that is what will be your defense. And that is why you must have a good defense. So with this, I will end my presentation. I think we have to now go for the actual consent, how it is being taken. So I will introduce my my brother-in-law and also my IT member who has developed this consent for doctor.com platform. He is having an IT firm, and he has helped us to put my dream into reality. So I will now hand over to Hiren, and Hiren will take you through the process of how to register and how to download the consent from the our platform. And if you have any question or any doubt or any suggestion to him, you can definitely give, so that we can make it a better platform. So Hiren, over to you.
Hello everybody. Myself Harin Kosti, and I'm actually handling consent for doctor as an IT person. Please forgive me if I speak something non-technical terms in your words, because this is my first presentation to such a large group of doctors, and I don't belong to, not belong, because I would say I am far away from the technicality of the subject, but I know my IT thing very well. So let me straight away take to that part.
Hiren, you can share your screen.
Yes. Let me know if everybody can see my screen.
Yes. Yes, it is seen.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to quickly give you a few aspects over here. Number one is like we have already 276 consents across 14 specialties, which we are supporting at this point of time. And Dr. Hitesh and his team is actually keep adding more consents in the different specialties, and we are also introducing more specialties here. Since I see, I know many of us is like from the gynecology, I just focus on that part.
Hiren, you start with the registration on the website. Now, how they register on the website? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, you can see I have 55 different consents over here for gynecologists, for the gynecology specialty. Now, let me quickly go over from the registration part. So we have basically sign up and login. If you sign up here, that it's a very small, very simple thing. You just need to put up a couple of things like your hospital email address, hospital name, hospital address, hospital phone number, hospital registration, which is required actually, for preparing the consents. Hospital contact person who is going to be the contact person for this particular application, username and password. Once this registration is done, actually, once you fill up this particular form, we actually ask you to verify your email address, because email address is something which is going to be act as your login. So we need a genuine email address, and you should put email address to which you have access to. So once you put up that email address, you will receive email which is actually asking you to verify. There will be a link to verify your email address. As soon as you verify that email address, we as administrator of this particular application, we get notification and we approve the hospital registration. Once you get the hospital registration done, and you will get an intimation from email, you can log into the hospital. Now let me log into the hospital.
So this is how you will put your email and password and you will log in, right? You will have to sign in once the registration is created. Registration is a one-time process, just the way you have registered for the Google, register for your emails, like that.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so once you log in, actually, once your registration is done and you logged in, you can see a nice dashboard here where you can see, how many patients. I mean, just a simple dashboard here, right? Which is going to give, some, overview of what exactly. How many consents has been done total, total doctors, the recent doctor has been registered to your portal or your hospitalization, total patients recently registered, right? So you can actually add more patients, doctors, right? So you can see here and you can add more patients. I mean, as soon as some patient comes in, you can add the patient's information. A simple patient information can be added, right? And it is very quick, few things only. Once this is done, let's say you can straight away, like let's say you are new and you don't want to add to the doctor or add patient, and you just start generating the consent, right? You wanted to start generating consent.
Hiren, you have to ask for the payment part also, that otherwise consent will not be generated.
Yes, definitely. Right. So as soon as you log in, basically you are actually, as per the system, actually you will be given free consent, which is general consent. So as soon as you create your login, we have a specialty called general, and that is been actually given free. So that and as soon as you have that, you will have this admission and all consent which is belong to the general specialty will be visible here, and you can actually take up this, you can start using this consent. However, if you want to print something, right, so then you have to actually add some per print cost, which is, we have 2 rupees per print cost. So you have to actually it is a kind of mobile recharging, right? So you have to go and recharge, let's say 100 rupees or something, right? And that means that you can print to 50 consents. Now there are each specialties which has this we have, as I said, like we have 14-15 specialties. You have to subscribe these specialties. So what it means is basically each specialty has some 1,000 rupees cost. Once you subscribe this specialty, that means that under this particular specialty, whatever consents we have, those will be available to you to use it, actually to use in your practice. So right now, as you see, like, I have already subscribed, cosmetic, dermatology, cosmetic, and ENT and general, right, which is free. And I haven't have much more. But as soon as you do that, it will actually take you to the payment page, and payment process is also very simple. As soon as you click it, it will actually go to the Paytm page, and you just select your payment method and complete the Paytm. Now, let's say I have ENT or something already subscribed, and I wanted to actually generate a consent. And if I go to this thing, and if I, let's say, select, right? So I'm here now. I don't need to. Let's say I'm doing first time and I don't have doctor. Then you can straight away add doctor from here, right? So this will actually take you to this place. It is very intuitive. You can simply put few information about doctor registration number, phone number, and that is simple. Four, five things, and doctor registration will be done. Same is the case with add new patient, which is also a very simple registration. I just consider that, okay, I have already one doctor who is registered with me, right? So I just type his name. So I have, let's say, this one, and I put myself as a patient. I already have this information in my database. I'm just taking this at 8:21 p.m. If you want to change it, you can change it, but and date as well. But else, this will be by default. And then if you, let's say, as Dr. Hitesh suggested, if you don't put these alternatives and ill effects, and let's say I just go here and put some diagnose, and then operation title, I just put random some operation title, right? And then let's say it's anesthesia. See this, and consent taking doctor, if it is a different, right, as Dr. Hitesh presented, that can be a possibility where consent taking doctor is different than the operating doctor. So you can put up here and you can add that. And consent signed by guardian or who, right? So if it is a guardian, then you give the guardian's information.
The point here is, if you have added all the doctors or the names once only, next time it will automatically come on a click. You just have to click and you will get that doctor's name and address and everything. You will not have to write every time.
Yes.
And then you just click create, and it will create a consent. That's it.
And let's say I haven't put up the alternative and illness effect and like this, and I just try to create, right? So it will not allow. It will say that, okay, you have to put this information here, right? I just put.
The point is, we are not putting alternates and we are not giving the ill effect of no treatment. These are two important aspects of a consent that we have to put. And if you have put it once, next time, suppose I have put in a cesarean case, I have put normal vaginal delivery is an alternate.
Yeah.
So not preferable alternate, but is an alternate. Next time it will automatically pop up if you write, but you have to click that. So you don't have to write every time, but you have to have that alternate in the consent. It will be printed next time.
Yes. So let's say I have put in these two, simple, irrelevant things for now.
And now create.
Yeah. And then I say, save and print.
So the consent is created. See, it gets created beautifully. And no field will be unfilled, right? See, this is the consent. See, the patient name has come, the sex is mentioned, age is mentioned, operation title is mentioned, everything is mentioned.
Patient name is mentioned here, and you can actually
scroll.
There is an alternative procedure, alternatives which I put up here, right? So that is there, and then demo ill effect.
In ill effect, he mentioned demo, so demo word has come there.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever you write, that will come there. And at the end also, see here also doctor's name have come. Here one doctor's name is in bold, this doctor's name is in bold, test doctor is mentioned. So whosoever doctor's name is that also will come. So no blank will remain blank, right?
And then we have this doctor and patient, and this
here
information is also
again
already
doctor's
there.
name is printed, because many a times doctor sign but the name is not written below. And if you do not write name below the signature, it has no validity. Nobody will come to know whose signature is that. Many a times the junior changes, right?
Yeah. So and the another good legal part is basically you can see this unique code here at the bottom of the consent, right? Which is like said unique code. Now this unique code and date and time is also registered with our software. So even if let's say tomorrow in unlike event, if somebody challenge, right, we have this unique code which actually cross check with our database or our this thing, whether this consent has been seriously generated from the software and actually taken up this consent. So it can be held legally there, and you can simply print, and this print will be taken up to the attached printer, whatever it is.
So the thing is, if you just save the consent instead of save and print, if you just save, you can see it from the history.
Yes.
Right? In the history you go, so you can create a consent over your mobile. You just save it and ask your staff to print it. So later on also it can be printed. You can do it at your home. While traveling in a car, you can make a consent, because alternate staff cannot put, right? Or the title of the surgery staff cannot put that LSCS for oligohydramnios. So you type in there and you just save it and ask with the same credential, your staff can log in from your hospital and you ask them to take the print, right? Here you can take the print.
Yeah.
So that way it is not time consuming. Even you are anywhere traveling, you can just make a consent if you are going to operate the patient, right? And by the time you reach your hospital, the consent will be ready. So that is it.
Yep.
Now Shivani has asked one question about the printed consent. Now that judgment itself was different. Just 2 days back, Shivani, coincidentally, that Kantikar, he is a very good friend of mine, Dr. Kantikar, who pronounced that judgment. He talked to me and he said that what he meant by that, he himself said that what he meant by that was a blanket consent which was printed before. Printed means the hospitals, that was a case of Vinod Khanna versus RG Stone Hospital. Now what happened? They used to have one paper in the name of consent. I, Dr. Dash, patient Dash, operation title Dash, I have been explained all the risks, I have been explained all the alternates, I have been explained all the benefits. Now that what is the meaning of all, right? So you cannot use that word all. You have to specifically say what it is. So that is what he said, that type of blanket consent which is not allowed. So he never meant printed. What he meant was that type of blanket printed consents are not allowed. So he meant that if it is procedure specific, if it confirms the standard of the Supreme Court, nobody can refuse it until and unless the Supreme Court, a bigger bench, this judgment was given by 3-judge bench. So if bigger bench turn down this judgment, till that time, this judgment is valid as far as the Samira Kohli's judgment is concerned. So that what he worded it wrongly. He knows himself also that he worded it wrongly. But what he meant was a different thing. And he meant that. And I have seen that case paper also, that consent also of RG Stone Hospital. If you see that, it was one-paged consent for all the procedure. Lithotripsy, same page. Instead of lithotripsy, if you write PCNL, that becomes a consent for PCNL. If you write nephrostomy, it becomes a consent of nephrostomy. If you write kidney transplant, it becomes a consent of kidney transplant as well.
It's not that, Hitesh, he made such a big mistake in giving, such a big judgment, and he said, oh, sorry, it came out like that. Actually, in my mind, I meant like that. So even
Yes.
for us, doctors are specialists. Oh, sorry, it came out like that. In my mind, I was doing this treatment
Right.
for
So the first thing is all tribunals. That is first thing. So we have to follow the Supreme Court's judgment. Second thing, there is a role of advocate also. The advocate who is presenting or representing has to present in such a way that he can convince the judge that I am having all the parameters which are mentioned by the Supreme Court. So if you can represent in that manner, then you will not have any problem. Like in the same consent which is used by one of our clients, there was a case of PPH. In the cesarean, there was a PPH. And they did, in a primary patient, he did hysterectomy. Now, in the consent, it is mentioned that hysterectomy will be required in case of excessive bleeding. So the case was filed in the consumer court at Nashik. So the patient claimed that his uterus was removed without my consent. So we presented on the day of admission that, sir, this is the consent which she signed. And the first line or first complication in our cesarean consent, if you see on this website, it mentions bleeding as a first complication and infection is a second complication. And in that we have written that bleeding can be to the extent that it may require a hysterectomy. So judge asked the complainant, do you have any other complaint? She said no. Then he said, then whatever you are complaining is against what is documented with your signature. So I am not admitting this. So he refused to admit. So that is where it helps.
Dr. Hitesh, everything is wonderful, but I'm doubting my skills that, is it going to be that easy for every case, that you have to document and take out a print?
Or else you can write with pen and paper on the, that is also fine. Right? But you have to write everything. All these 6 parameters should be there in every consent.
Is it not possible, that, procedure-specific consent is there, and already, we make things, our name is there, patient name is there, everything is there.
How can there
the
be
rest of the
patient
things
name
are the same.
printed? How can there be patient's name printed? How can there be indication printed? How can there be alternates printed? Alternate can be different. In one cesarean, there can't be all the alternates. Suppose it is a cesarean for preterm delivery, the alternate is vaginal delivery. But if cesarean is for transverse life, there is no alternate. So that
I think I will take experts' comment, whether they have doubt, because I find, things are definitely there. Our only thing we have to develop and skill, and for us, this procedure-specific consent has to be generated. Over to you, to Dr. Shivani, and then Dr. Urvashi is going to answer. Dr. Shivani. You are doing it in your center. Is it doable?
I am using the consent of Dr. Hitesh Bhatt, and I really want to point out that in his IVF and egg collection consent, the word ectopic pregnancy is also mentioned, and we had one case where there was ectopic pregnancy after IVF, and the patient came to us and explained to me about ectopic pregnancy, and they sent some kind of letter and all. And we replied back showing Dr. Hitesh's consent where ectopic pregnancy was mentioned. After that, no email, nothing from the patient, no more complaints. So I feel that this consent is very good, and like you, ma'am, I feel it is difficult to type it online. We have to print it out, and after printing, we write the name of the patient, because that is easy. And one more thing, in their consent for IVF, they have also written death after egg collection. Few patients have come and told me, why have you written death? Are we going to die? So we have to explain to them that it is 3 in 1 pack, but we have to write everything in the consent.
And there is a death recently, 2 months back at Hyderabad only. I'm in Hyderabad today. In one of my centers, there was a death in ovum pickup. It happens. So how to convince? See, patients are telling that in one of the hospitals, they told me, you see, how to convince is an art. And unfortunately or fortunately, it is there in me. The patient said that you have written death and I will not sign. So the doctor came to me. I was there in that center. So they said, sir, this patient is saying no to sign because death is written. I said, send that patient to me. I told her that, madam, why you are not signing? She said, sir, you have written death, so I will not sign. I said, okay, you remove that line, you write that I will not die on table. You write that and you sign. She said, how can I write that? I said, then how can I write that? Understood the concern. Always put the ball in other person's court and he will understand the problem.
And it is very, very relevant because I have myself seen death in a diagnostic laparoscopy.
So
I have myself seen this thing. And sir, one more point I want to say, just IVF, we were discussing about IVF and ectopic. I think heterotropic pregnancy. And the commonest cause of heterotropic pregnancy is an IVF pregnancy.
So, one more thing I would like to add in the previous talk, that I also say that, see, you have to, when it comes to Supreme Court said you have to explain only the reasonable risk. Fine. But they have not said that you don't write the probable risk. When it comes to writing, you have to write everything. And that happens everywhere in every field. I told you consent is a contract. Now, let me tell you, when I went to a bank for taking a loan, the manager, he told me only three things. He said, you will be given this much amount. You will have to pay in 5 years. This is your EMI. And if you will not pay, we will take back your home. Only 4 things. But when I went to sign, there were 60 pages. That means they are writing more than what they tell. So in consent also the same thing is applicable. Yes. You have to tell only the probable risk. But when it comes to writing, you have to write all the risk which is there. If you take an insurance, we all have taken an insurance, right? Mediclaim or indemnity, whatever insurance. They will tell you only 2-3 things. Sir, this is our group of office. You can admit anywhere. It will be cashless. You will be given up to 20 lakh, 50 lakh, and you can take the admitted. They will show you. Section 27, you will not be given money. Why? That was not told to us. But it is not. It need not be. Nobody will.
Yeah, thanks. We understand that. One last question from my side. When we are doing this PRP treatment, there were some new laws and all which have come to specifically for this, for PRP, or whether we are doing bone marrow cells for whatever thin endometrium or intra-ovarian PRP. Do you have a consent for that also, because these are newer procedures?
Yes, we have consent for PRP. For bone marrow, we have to make the consent for bone marrow. And as my partner also said, we keep on adding the consents. More and more procedures are coming and we keep on adding the consent. And within 1 week's time, the consent for that also will be added. So you also can tell us and request us. Those who are our client, or those who are on the website, they put the request and we develop the consent. And we develop means we get it from the textbooks. We are not doing it on our own. And we show it to the professors of that particular department or that particular from a medical college. They approve it and then we put it. It is not something which we write from our brain. Though we are doctors, but we get it authenticated. We always show it to the teachers that is it the list of indication, the complication, or there are few more risks.
No. Yeah, there is no doubt. We are I am telling you of the number of times that your consents have saved people, because you are the only one who writes deaths at the time of egg collection. But only one last thing, this consent for doctors, so we can register and then we can take printouts of the consents and we can put it handwritten also. That is also possible.
Yes, but we have made it, because what used to happen, we first made the books. Now in book, people used to take the printout, they used to get it printed from the printers, but they were not filling the blanks. Now again we were in the back to square one. If it is not written, then there is no legal sanctity to that particular thing, whatever beautifully it is written. So we have to fill in all the gaps. So for that we came out with this idea, because everybody is now habitual to do Form F. Every staff knows how to fill Form F, because there is punishment behind. So they have learned that. Why can't they learn this? There is nothing different. In Form F, if you do not fill any field, it will not be uploaded. Similarly, in our consent, if you do not fill any field, it will not be printed. Right?
I am in a government hospital, I just want to put in one thing that when I do cesarean audits and everything we are doing, what I found was just a cesarean the consent has been taken, okay, everything has been written, but the consent is signed by the husband or the relative. I am telling you, this is happen. You just see the consent in the government hospital always happens. The patient signature kahin nahi hai. It is the husband, relative consent, and there is no counter signature of the doctor. So this consent of no value actually.
Exactly. That is why we are printing everything, sir.
So this is particular in government hospital. I think we should take it because
one more case, Shivani, I would like to.
Dr. Urvashi, you want to comment? Dr. Urvashi.
Sir, I would like to add one more point.
Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, ma'am.
There is a case of
consent form. Is there place to add? Because sometimes we may want to add certain things to alternatives or to complications.
There is a space for alternatives, and that helps you.
Yes.
And,
that helps you.
And if there is any blank which is left, will it auto stop printing?
If it will not be printed, if it is left blank, it will not be printed.
It will not be printed.
Yes.
Okay.
Shivani, I will tell you where was a home pickup case for social freezing, and in alternate, I always tell that in alternate to transvaginal pickup, you write laparoscopic pickup. So they were writing laparoscopic pickup. Now there is one case in Mumbai that was filed before the Maharashtra Medical Commission, and it is still going on in the consumer forum. One lady, she said that my oocytes were taken by transvaginal sonography. She was 45 years old. She said, I am unmarried. I was virgin. You did transvaginal sonography. It was never told to me that you are going to do this way. And there is alternate also of the abdominal route. So we showed that consent, and we won that case in Maharashtra Medical Council against the doctor that she filed. We showed the consent, and the council said that there is a signature, and the alternate very specifically mentions laparoscopic pickup, and still she preferred to go for the transvaginal pickup. And the procedure is also mentioned that we will put a probe inside the vagina. Everything is mentioned. Then she has no say, and we won that case.
Doctor,
Excellent.
She has filed that case, and you will be surprised to hear the amount she has claimed in the consumer court, which I am going to win on the base of this consent. She has filed for 1.25 crore rupees.
So I think
The harassment is for free.
See, I think, it's very good if we have our own consents and we have blanks and we can fill it. But the only security, it seems, from patient's consent, downloading that, is if there's any blank, it will not print. So
Yes.
that's a safeguard. And unless we can do that in our consents, then that safeguard is missed.
And if you have a printed consent in a similar fashion, if you are writing it, then there is no problem. But nobody checks it. And that is why there were many form apps were left blank and machines were sealed. It was for the same reason, because doctors do not have time to check. You just tell me how many of you are actually checking whether all the blanks are filled or not.
No, it's very difficult. And
No, see, the question is 99% are not taking the consent procedure specific consent. And I think, just like an MTP, just like other things, you have no other alternative. We have to take a procedure specific consent. The only thing, initially it is going to be pain, but after that, it will become a routine.
One last thing I will tell you, one very nice incident. It is not actually nice, but what happened, the one couple came, she was unmarried girl with her boyfriend to get MTP done. She was major, MTP was done, and she went back. Now she had a fight with her boyfriend after 1 year, and she filed a case of rape somewhere in UP. So the UP police came to Maharashtra, Mumbai, and she came to that doctor, and what she said to the police, that I don't know how to read and write. My boyfriend signed the consent, and my name is Shabana, but my boyfriend signed as a Savita on 15th of August at this particular hospital. The police learned that she has not signed the consent. Terminating pregnancy without a consent of a person is a crime in the Indian Penal Code. The punishment is 5 to 7 years of imprisonment. So police in Maharashtra is not as genuine as police in Delhi. So they came and they said that we are going to arrest the doctor. So they said that we are going to arrest the doctor because he has terminated the pregnancy without the consent of the lady herself. Her boyfriend has signed. So, and the police also asked 5 to 7 lakh rupees upfront. They said, you pay us and we will make the case, we will not make the case against you. So that girl approached various advocates and then she talked to me. Advocate said, we will see it in the court. But what I did, I said, madam, next day, because police cannot directly arrest a person in Maharashtra from UP. So she was called to the nearby police station next day. I said, I'm coming to that police station. Next day, I went to police station with her. And what I did, I asked that girl, I asked the police that, can I ask 2 questions to her? And I did. I asked that girl that, what is your name? She said, my name is Shabana, but in consent, my boyfriend has signed as Savita. I said, I'm not asking that. What is your name? She said, I am Shabana. I said, is this your signature? She said, no, my boyfriend has signed it. I said, no, you just tell me, is it your signature? She said, no. Then I said, the police. I said, we have terminated the pregnancy of a person who has signed it, whose name is Shabana. Right? So this, we have not terminated a pregnancy. You have any document in your hand that we have terminated a pregnancy? She said, no. We said, we are giving discharge card. She said, but that discharge card I thrown because I was unmarried. I said, that is your problem. We have not terminated a pregnancy at all. You prove it. Then the case was dismissed. Then I asked the police that I can, मैं चाय पानी का 200-500 दे सकता हूँ, 5 लाख नहीं दे सकता. वो बोले डॉक्टर साहब अब क्या चाय पानी, तुमने तो पूरा पानी फेर दिया. That is what the police said. But you can't be lucky every time. What actually happened in this case? You understand what is the learning point? What actually happened? The doctor gave consent to the nurse. Sign ले लो. अभी नर्स को पेशेंट ने, हस्बैंड ने बोला, वो बॉयफ्रेंड ने बोला मैं साइन कर दूं, तुम करो. उसको क्या फर्क पड़ता है? Nobody knows the concern. And this was the effect. Every time you can't be lucky. And that is why it has to happen in presence of 2 witnesses or in front of your eyes or the front of the person who is taking the consent, and it should be signed by that person. If person is illiterate, take thumb impression.
Ma'am, can I ask a question?
Yeah, Dr. Vandana, please.
Sir, if there is a conflict, husband and wife, the wife wants a hysterectomy and husband is insisting for conservative treatment, and then how to proceed?
See, if husband's treatment is happening, then husband is the author of his body, and wife she is in charge of her body. Everybody has right to decide what will happen to my body. Nobody else can. If wife wants to go ahead, she can go ahead and do it. Only thing is, when there is involvement of genetic material, the consent of both is required. Because if the child will come into this earth, then it will belong to both. That is why the consent of both is required for infertility work. But otherwise, only wife's consent is enough to treat her, and husband's consent is enough to treat him.
And she can come with any relative and get it done. She can come with any relative and go ahead with
100%. 100%. Even MTP, she can get it done without husband's consent.
But hysterectomy is also loss of fertility. So for that, you should have the spouse's consent. I believe
No.
That's what we were told.
That is also wrong. See, if you are doing hysterectomy, even for, you are not doing it for loss of, it leads to loss of fertility.
Yeah, whatever you are doing for.
You are treating it for her own benefit, first thing. And even for tubal ligation, the government guidelines says, it is Medical Council Act that says when there is loss of fertility, both should sign. That was said in 1956 by the Medical Council of India. But now in Government of India has said that if family planning operation wife wants, she can go ahead and do it with her own consent. Husband's consent is not required for that. So we can save you on both the sides. There is a government guideline that says that husband's consent is not required. It is her body, she decides whether to conceive or not. And that was told in case of Mangala where her pregnancy was terminated without husband's consent. And the Punjab High Court said that woman is not a machine where raw material is put and fine product will come out. The husbands have to convince their wife to conceive and continue and deliver. They have marital rights for the coitus, but they do not have right to force us into pregnancy. So these are the words they have mentioned in the judgment.
So sometimes the patient says, you do the oophorectomy. I want everything out. I cannot come again to the OT. And you feel that the ovaries should be saved. Then what do we do? She's giving the consent for oophorectomy.
Counseling.
You can always do less than the consent given. You cannot do more than the consent given. If she gives consent for oophorectomy, you can preserve it. If she gives consent for hysterectomy, you may not do hysterectomy. But you cannot go. It is as simple as that. If Sharda madam gives me permission to take 1,000 rupees from her purse, I can take 900, I can take 800, I can take 200. But I cannot take 1,100.
But she can blame later on, you did not remove and so I got this.
So your decision should be perfect. Consent is not a license to kill. You must have a proper indication. You must have proper thing in mind. You have to explain that also to the patient that I may not remove.
I will now take experts' opinion of all. Dr. Shivani has been using your consent, and many people have been using it, and they find that there are many litigations could be avoided. And I also feel here from whatever the litigation things are that we have no other alternative but to take a procedure-specific consent. And this is a very simple thing. One-time payment you have to make is of 1,000 rupees, and every time you take. You deposit something like a telephone recharging 100 200 rupees, and you can keep on printing the thing, but you have to give the name of the doctor, name of the patient, procedure which is going to be done, and all the things have to be done. Then you'll find the procedure specific consent. You can download it. I hope, Dr. Hitesh, it will be as simple as that. Dr. Shivani?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. And if you have written name for the PCPNDT purpose or whatever, you can copy paste also. There is no need to write it again. You can copy paste it in this.
Patients, you have to register separately?
No, you have registered somewhere, then you can copy paste in this website.
Sir, is it possible for
patients' names in the same register?
Same patient comes again, it will be there in the register. So you just put A and all the patients starting name with A will be highlighted. You can click that particular. So it is just 4 clicks.
Sir, if we register for the hospital,
have the list of your patients?
Whatever patients you are going to operate, that you have to enter that patient's name. Then only it will be printed on a consent.
Yeah, as and when that happens.
And the one more question is asked that is very, very dear to me. Consent in local language and along with English. See, as far as the consent's language is concerned, consent is a contract, as I told you. Contract can be in any national or local language. There is no need for dual language or 3 language because it is just for a quality purpose. NABH is telling and teaching you all this, but law doesn't say so. Law says that consent or a contract can be in local language or in a national language. If now you print consent in 2 languages as per this quality standards, what if a patient of Telugu from Tamil Nadu or from Karnataka or from Malayali speaking patient comes to your hospital? Can't you treat them? If you print the consent in all 25 languages of India, what if a Chinese patient comes to you, Ukrainian patient comes to you, Russian patients can come to you? What is their language? If you print the consent in all the global language, 15,000, 25,000 language, what if illiterate patient comes to you? Can't you treat them? So there is no such rule that consent should be in this language. It is presumption in law that when somebody signs something, who is more than 18 years of age with sane mind, he has understood and signed. And if it is...
Dr. Ila, you want to comment, Dr. Ila?
Yeah, ma'am, I just want to ask one question from Dr. Hitesh. It was an excellent presentation and very, very nice. Sir, I want to know if we register from one hospital, then all other doctors of the same hospital can use that consent.
If you give them user and password.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask,
Yes.
because we are going to register from the hospital's name.
Fine, you have to put hospital's name, but you put username and password. It should be accessible to all, right?
Okay.
Sir, if the hospital already has a consent form, can we add yours also?
That is up to you.
No.
It is up
That is up to you.
means there is nothing like adding. It is a separate registration. You can register, but don't take 2 consent for 1 procedure.
Correct.
You have to take only 1 consent for 1 procedure.
So your
Dr.
hospital
Raj,
has
you want to
to
comment?
allow the use of the other consent form. If you're going to use Dr. Hitesh's consent form, your hospital has to be okay with that.
It is not my consent form, it is procedure consent form.
Yeah.
I think you have to fill it up with the hospital's name.
But And again, in the language, I would like to add one more thing. And this is a very funny thing. If any case is lost, if many people they tell, that patient will tell in the court that we did not understand. Very good. If consent is properly written and signed, there is no blanks left, and still somebody claims that I did not understand, and if court allows that argument and I lose the case, I will be the happiest person on the earth, because I may lose that case, but I will start doing the same thing, showing that judgment. What I will do, I will first stop paying my EMI of the bank. I have not understood because it was written in Marathi. I will stop paying my mobile bill. I did not understand. I will stop paying my electricity bill. I will send my wife home back. I did not understand that by signing a marriage registration, I have to keep her with me. So I will be happiest person on the earth. That argument doesn't stand in the court. People have wrong information. It is incompleteness of the consent that leads to this problem, not the properly written and signed. No contract on the earth is ever rejected by the court which is properly written and properly signed by both the parties and two witnesses.
If a greater complication has not been mentioned in the procedure-specific consent form, it's not a common complication, then can they hold you liable for that?
If it is not mentioned, that happens, yes, but we have mentioned all the complications. Madam.
Correct. No, I'm talking about, say, only 3 or 4 common complications are.
No, we have mentioned all the list of complications for that particular surgery.
But he wants us to speak only 3-4.
Yes, you have to speak 3-4, but we have written everything.
But if I'm not talking about your consent form, I'm now talking about, say, a case.
Then
where they've written 3-4, but their complication which developed is another one, which is not that common.
There is a case where patient said that this complication was not explained to us because it is not there in the consent, though it was a rare complication. That is why you must have everything printed.
So then
that is the purpose.
Doctor is liable for that, right?
Yes, doctor had to pay for not explaining that complication which could have occurred. Right. So it is better to say everything. You explain only 2-3, but write everything.
But sir, you don't explain the extreme complication
Exactly.
or the.
We need not.
You just mention in the form only.
Yes. You need not. It is just.
But he has to sign.
Yes,
you
have to tell only the reasonable risk. That is what Supreme Court said.
No. So you've written death in all your complications?
100%. All the consents, yes.
In the hysterectomy also in the cesarean. In each cesarean hysterectomy is a must.
Yes. We have written everything.
You can have death for every operation.
Yes, madam. Every operation.
Your consent has death.
Death is the complication of life itself. Right, so it has to be there.
No, it's the eventuality of life itself.
Yes, death is life itself is a lethal condition. Eventually leads to death.
So one more question. When we have to take out the consent, we have to fill up all the alternatives and everything, then only the consent form will come out. So when it has to be given to the patient for the signature?
See, many of my users, what they are doing, that when the patient comes for the first examination and all, and hysterectomy or some operation is suggested, they take the printout of the consent and give it to them. They say, you go, read and come back. And you sign it and give it back to me.
That's the right way. That's the right way.
Right. That's what they are doing. You can give it. And if they don't bring it back, you take the another print. That's it. You already have it. You have created it.
Anybody wants to ask any questions in the audience?
Yes, sir. Can I ask then, which are provided by GOI, Government of India, like for sterilization operations of females and males, and then there are consents for medical legal examination of sexual assault victims. Have you modified them or they are printed as such?
See, those consents which are there in the law, we have put that also, that is as it is. We have also made a provision for government consent, and that consent will come as it is without any change, right? So that you just have to, it is a template. You have to fill with the pen and this thing, because we have not added anything in that, you have to write as it is. It is just for the sake of availability, we have made it available. You don't have to search it in various different laws. So that is why we have made it available.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So one thing I would like to ask. Many a time it happened that patient is in labor and we take consent from husband say कि मैं sign कर देता हूँ wife की जगह.
We are never taking consent for the husband. We are taking them as a witness. When husband signs, he is a witness if the treatment is for the wife. You understand that thing? Consent is always given by the patient who is undergoing the treatment. If the person is more than 18 years of age with sound mind.
Everybody who's listening, if his patient has to give a consent, husband consent is not required.
That husband gives consent. In life also, husband can never give consent, right? Husband has to agree to everything. So,
so can the witness be our hospital staff?
Anybody more than 18 years of age with sound mind can become witness. And what is the role of witness? That also is a misconception. Many a time staff doesn't sign. The witness's role is not to know what is written above. Witness just tells that I have seen this person signing before me. That is what is the role of witness. And that is why witness has to sign after the parties. I have seen witnesses signing at 8 p.m. and doctor is signing at 9 p.m. Doctor is a party. How can witness see him signing after 1 hour? Right. So witness has to sign after. Or it can be same time, but it can't be before the parties.
So there is a question in the chat box, what about this Foxy consent form? How these are...
We have no idea. We can't comment on something which we have not developed.
Dr. Raj, it is as clear. He has said that in case if you take the forms and if the columns remains unfilled, it is equal to 0. So you have to say patient specific, procedure specific, doctor specific consent has to be there.
We also have made a provision that if you have a letterhead, you want to take a printout on a letterhead, you just tick mark that and consent will be coming on your letterhead. It will leave some margin on the top. And if you don't have a letterhead, you just print a blank page and the consent will print your hospital's name on each page, which is required. Also, it will give page number. So that you will not miss any page. See, all these things we don't do otherwise. Right.
Excellent deliberation.
So my request to everybody is that please register, and I'm sure, as Dr. Hitesh says, things are going to be very easy. I hope things will fall in place.
And only one thing I want to tell to everyone, if we start using your specific consent form, I think it will make the litigation very, very, very low.
Dr. Raj, it is not only procedure specific. It is doctor specific, patient specific and procedure specific.
As Shivani has said, I have seen also in my practice that patient, if you show them the consent, they will also, morally also, they will go a little on this side on not filing a case. They will understand that yes, they have written everything. I cannot go against them. Even it will bind them morally also from going against you. Right?
Sir, do we have Dr. Shivani, I want the last word from you.
If you are employee somewhere or if you have purchased something and shopkeeper shows you, Madam, you also get prevented from doing something. No, nahi, uske paas to likha hua hai, kya kare? Right? At least you will think twice.
Excellent deliberation.
Excellent.
It's eye-opening for everyone.
Dr. Hitesh, can while downloading the consent form, if we have any problem, can we have some numbers to call that person?
Yeah, there is a message box. You can put that message. You can call us, or Hiren is always there. You can call him also. But there will not be any. If there is a problem in Gmail, whom do you call?
Right.
It happens. There is no problem, right?
Okay, sir.
Good evening, sir. I had a question. Please, may I, ma'am?
Sure. Please go ahead, Dr. Shalini.
Sir, we had one patient and we did self-injectomy for ectopic pregnancy, one-sided. She was a primary patient and she gave consent for that and they didn't want laparoscopy to be done. It was an open procedure.
procedure. Now the wife, she has gone home and she has put a case against the husband. They had some dispute after a few months, and she has thrown, or she's not showing all the records. And she went to the police and she has said that husband has wantedly removed her tube and all those things, and husband wanted records from the hospital. So could we provide the records to the husband? As it's third party, na sir?
Husband had signed the consent as a witness or any at any.
No, patient has signed and husband has signed as witness, sir.
If husband has a husband's signature is there, you can give the document. Whosoever, wherever somebody signs, is a rightful owner of that particular thing. You can give that document to them.
Okay, sir. And sir, one more question, sir.
Yes.
May I ask? Sir, we had an ANC patient and she delivered outside today, and I got the news that she had the baby has been delivered with a thumb in one hand and 4 fingers are not there. And level 2 was done and it was normal at that time, sir.
So?
She was a primary patient. I'm just worrying that could anything like something can be developed. They can do something, sir, in this case.
It is up to them. How do I assume? How can I know that what they are going to do?
You take preventive indemnity.
I know only one person who can do something against me, that, or I can assume that what that she will do. That is my wife. That I know that what she will do next.
Doctor, my request to everybody who's listening, there's something called preventive medical legal this thing.
Yes,
So you everybody pays for 10,000 rupees for a year. In fact, you have missed that particular board, but still things can be done. Still things can be done.
You can now keep our number. If something comes up, we will give reply. Right? Something will come up.
Just take the preventive indemnity, Shalini. I think this is going to help you for a year, and then the next year again it can be.
This is called preventive medical legal consultancy. It is not indemnity. It's consultancy only. You can get in touch with me or Dr. Raj.
Okay, ma'am.
And they are available to help you at round the clock, 24/7.
Okay, ma'am. I'll call you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Hitesh, it was wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Shakuntala, wind up.
2 hours of everybody glued to this talk that you deliberated, Dr. Hitesh. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk. And thank you all the experts and chairpersons for being there till the end. And I think this forum is meant for all of us, wherein we will be giving and we'll be taking help from all the experts from time to time, and calling the experts on our forum, on this platform, for more, topics, medical legal speciality. So till then, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Sharda, ma'am. Thank you, Shakuntala.
Thank you, sir. Each experts.
Thank you, Dr. Hitesh.